Hi, I'm Shawna Karami, and thank you for watching 8 News Now.
Congressman Joe Heck is a physician, but he's been attacked repeatedly on the issue of health care in his race to win re-election. Why did a doctor say no to a cancer vaccine? And is Social Security a pyramid scheme? How does Joe Heck plan to deal with a program that's been called the third rail of American politics? We'll ask him straight ahead on Politics Now. Thanks for tuning into Politics Now. I'm Steve Sebelius. My guest this week is Congressman Joe Heck. He's an emergency room physician, a colonel in the U.S. Army Reserves, and he's running for re-election in the 3rd Congressional District. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve.
It's kind of ironic that Democrats are attacking you on the issue of health care, given your background as a physician. A nurse in one ad paid for by the DCCC saying Joe Heck voted against saving lives. He's just too extreme for Nevada. Are you surprised by these attacks?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not surprised. I'm disappointed, but I'm not surprised. I mean, I've been a physician in this community for over 20 years. As you know, working in emergency departments, which is really taking care of people at some of the most critical times of their lives.
Sure.
And have dedicated myself to that profession. And so to come and try to attack me for not caring about people from a healthcare perspective, to me, seems somewhat disingenuous.
Yeah, one of those attacks is an attack that arose back in 2007. You were in the state Senate at the time, and there was a bill to require certain healthcare plans to provide coverage of a vaccine for HPV, which is the virus that some people say leads to cervical cancer. You voted against that. You said it was a mandate. It's going to raise costs. Are you still comfortable with that vote, even though you've been attacked on it?
Well, I think there were two pieces to that vote. First was that this happened in 2007. The vaccine had just been approved in 2006. There was still a fair amount of controversy over the vaccine itself, its efficacy and its safety. There had been some reported deaths as well as adverse side effects. And then I've always been a person that is very concerned about adding additional mandates to health insurance because it does, in fact, drive up the premiums. And Nevada is one of the most heavily mandated states in the nation. And when you look at the over 55 different provider and service mandates that are required that we have on every insurance policy, whether or not you'll ever use it, whether or not you even want it, it really increased costs. And we have also one of the highest uninsured populations in the country. Sure. And I think there's a direct correlation between the cost of insurance and how many people are uninsured.
Yeah. When you voted on that, you're right, there were still some controversy over it. But you had to think, at some level, if this does prevent that vaccine, this would prevent cancer. And voting against it, voting to not have that as part of the package of coverage, could lead to some people getting cancer. I mean, was that on your mind?
Well, I think when you look at it, the question is, first, the vaccine covers only certain strains of HPV, not all.
Okay.
So there would still be strains of HPV that could lead to cervical cancer. And look, this was not a cancer vaccine. This was a vaccine against a specific virus that may cause cervical cancer.
Yeah, we don't have a cancer vaccine.
Right. Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So the issue then becomes, are you going to mandate a vaccine be covered? If an insurance company wanted to provide it, they could. But what this bill was saying was that every insurance policy, every private insurance policy, was going to have to provide coverage for the vaccine. Interestingly, it exempted those private self-insured policies, things that companies self-insure. They would not have been required to provide the vaccine as a mandated coverage. So, again, the goal is, when we were trying to wrestle with how do we get more people coverage for insurance, one of the last things we want to do is increase their costs, but yet it was still up to every individual policy and the company whether or not they wanted to offer the coverage.
Yeah, and that's still your position today.
It is.
If this came up in Congress, you'd cast the same vote?
I think that because, again, when we look, well, it's kind of different now because we have the health care reform law that's on the books, which also changes coverages. But I think my position of saying, look, you've got to be careful about how many mandates you put on a policy because it increased costs, especially a mandate that not every subscriber is going to utilize. For instance, as a single 50-year-old male, should you be paying for an HPV vaccine in your insurance policy? You're never going to use it, but yet you're going to be paying it, and it's going to increase your costs.
Yeah. Speaking of the Patient Protection Affordable Care Act, a.k.a. Obamacare, you voted to repeal that. You want to get rid of that coverage. How, some people might find it surprising a doctor would be against having health insurance, because the more health insurance, the more patients you're going to be able to treat.
I'm not against having more health insurance. I'm against the way the health care reform law tried to do it. And in fact, I voted to repeal and replace it. I actually have legislation that's been introduced as a replacement vehicle. I mean, there are things, as I said all along, even back in 2010 when this health care reform law was still being debated. there are things in the bill that are worthwhile, and we need to keep them. The no pre-existing condition exclusions, no lifetime caps, rights of rescission where you can't be dumped off your policy the day after you get sick.
Yeah.
Those are the needed reforms that we have to have. But when you look at the over 20 some odd different taxes that are put into this bill, when you look at the fact that now Congress, for the first time, is going to tax people for not doing something, we set a dangerous precedent. And where I think the bill really falls short is it does very little to bring down the spiraling cost of health care, which is how you're really going to get more people covered by controlling costs.
Yeah. Don't you need, though, a mandate to get people into that insurance pool? I mean, isn't that what they found in Massachusetts and what the Heritage Foundation found when they looked at it? If we don't have a big enough pool, there's no way this is going to pencil out for insurance companies.
Well, you can look at, you're right, you need a bigger pool. But you can look at two different ways to get people into that pool. You can either use a stick, which in this case would be a tax for not buying insurance, or you could try to incentivize people to be able to buy insurance and want to buy it. And so you look at things like allowing people to buy the policy that they want to buy with the coverages that are right for them at that point in time, decreasing their costs. Give individuals the right to tax deduction for the cost of their premium, like we do businesses that provide insurance, so they get a bit of a tax credit for buying insurance. Encourage them to buy insurance at an earlier age, similar to life insurance. The earlier you buy, the lower your premium.
Okay, yeah.
And so you can look at trying to incentivize people and still get more people into the pool, as opposed to saying you must buy it, and if you don't, you're going to be taxed because you did not.
Yeah, so we will see how that comes out. I guess that depends on the outcome of the presidential election. Coming up, is Joe Heck helping illegal immigrants, or is he just trying to get more tourists to come to Las Vegas? We'll ask him about a couple of his pet pieces of legislation as Politics Now continues.
I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
He says,
President Obama and I both care about poor and middle-class families.
but this is what the budget plan Mitt Romney supports actually does. More huge tax breaks skewed to the wealthy, while cutting nearly $800 billion from Medicaid, even though middle-class families rely on Medicaid to help loved ones cover nursing home care, and it helps parents support children with disabilities. If Mitt Romney really cares, wouldn't we see it in his priorities?
As returning sponsor of the Rock and Roll Las Vegas Marathon, we want all locals to be in it for the long run. And when you do, we'll make a donation to the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. As Las Vegas's original Dodge dealership, Chapman Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram has proven we're in it for the long run. So help us increase local participation and raise our donation to this very worthy cause. Chapman Dodge is family-owned and family-friendly, and our in-house financing will improve your credit if you earn $350 a week or more, period. Now run on down to Chapman Dodge on East Sahara and Mojave.
I felt an obligation to close the loopholes.
That's interesting, because Stephen Horsford is pretty good at finding loopholes. Horsford used a legal loophole to hide a lobbyist-paid trip to a party in the Bahamas. And Horsford walked a fine line when he tried to sell access for campaign donations. So, according to the Horsford rules, loopholes are just fine if they benefit him. Stephen Horsford. One set of rules for him, another for everyone else. The National Republican Congressional Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Attention dialysis patients. If you or a loved one has suffered a heart attack or sudden death within 48 hours after kidney dialysis treatment, your family may be entitled to compensation. Call us immediately for a free consultation.
Enough said. Call Ed.
Call Edward M. Bernstein and Associates immediately.
An unprecedented October storm slams the valley.
Then we went through the rest of the house. Everything was flooded.
8 News Now was there, warning you first of dangerous flooding through the night.
Tonight, maybe you might want to stay inside.
8 News Now, first in breaking news.
Welcome back to Politics Now. I'm Steve Sebelius. I'm joined this week by Dr. Joe Heck, a Republican running for re-election in the 3rd Congressional District. You have a bill that was introduced, I remember, at a very noisy news conference out there on Las Vegas Boulevard by the sign to promote tourism, especially from places such as China and Brazil and in India, where the waits for a tourist visa to come to the United States, come to Las Vegas, can be quite lengthy. Some people criticize that bill by saying this is going to help facilitate illegal immigration, which I thought, well, you know, it doesn't seem, Joe Heck does not seem the type of person to be a coyote getting people into the country. So where does that bill stand, and what are the protections to prevent illegal immigration as a result of that?
Well, again, as you mentioned, the bill really tries to concentrate on 3 countries that have significantly long wait times for tourist visas, Brazil, China, and India. In some cases, prior to the introduction of the bill, waits could be as much as 120 to 180 days, just waiting for the interview. Just waiting for the interview. No guarantee to get a visa, but just to get your interview to determine whether or not you're eligible for a visa. And we know that these countries have large populations of people that want to come to the United States. Certainly a big portion of those folks would want to come to Las Vegas. And we know that international travelers spend on average about $4,000 per person per week. That would really help our economy. So let's try to lessen the obstacles to those people getting visas. And we did that in a way that still maintains all the safeguards that are in the current visa process to make sure that we're not letting some terrorist into the country, and to safeguard against overstays, which are a very small amount, especially from these countries in question. We did have a hearing on the bill in the Judiciary Committee. We're waiting to see what happens post-election if we can continue to move that bill forward. One of the other parts of the bill to try to streamline the process would allow video conferencing interviews. In some of these places, it takes 2 days to get to the place where you can actually get your interview. And so if we can do an initial interview via video conferencing, and if nothing raises suspicions and grant a visa right then, great. If something raises a suspicion, then make the person come in. But we have to make it easier for those who want to come and support our hospitality industry to be able to get here. And it's not just leisure travel, it's also business travel, our trade show business. Some of the same shows that are here are held in other countries in Europe. Well, we see that folks are choosing to go to the show in Europe because you can get a visa to Germany in 72 hours. Here it's going to take you 120 days.
Yeah,
and so we need to streamline that process. It'll certainly be an economic boost, and it's been supported by the LDCVA, by the U.S. Travel Association, the National Restaurant Association. All the big groups in hospitality are on board with this bill.
Yeah, the other NRA, as they're known. You've also got a bill that would make it a crime to profit from lying about military service. There was a law that was passed that said if you lie about military service, that in itself is a crime. That was struck down on free speech grounds. You had a rather creative way around that. You're saying if you profit from it, then that's the crime, not the lying itself.
Right. And this is a great example of how constituents help develop legislation. This issue was brought to me by a constituent here in Las Vegas.
He
approached me. He's a retired lieutenant colonel from the U.S. Army Special Forces, Vietnam veteran, the first Ranger from Nevada admitted to the Ranger Hall of Fame. And he came to me and said, Joe, this is an issue we're going to see because the law had already been called into question by the Ninth Circuit Court. They knew that it was going to go to the Supreme Court, and he was like, we need to be prepared. And so we talked about how we could do this, and we came up with the idea of criminalizing profiting, actually committing fraud, as opposed to just criminalizing the lie. And then we waited for the Supreme Court decision, and in the decision, Justice Breyer actually gave us the pathway, saying a more tailored approach that would go after fraud would be constitutional. So we made a couple of last-minute amendments, got the bill through committee, passed the House by a vote of 410 to 3.
Wow. And so it sits in the Senate now waiting for passage. Do you think that'll pass by the end of the year?
I do. I think so. I think when we had over 100 bipartisan co-sponsors on the bill, an overwhelming show of support for the bill and the vote out of the House. I think the Senate will certainly take the bill up. I'm hopeful they'll take it up before December 31st.
Okay, we'll see. They've got a lot to do at the end of the year. Just ahead, Joe Heck has said Social Security is a pyramid scheme. What are his plans for the program? We'll find out as Politics Now continues. Stay with us.
Your foot hits the accelerator. The 270 horsepower engine responds. The needle rises. Your heart races. The 2012 Cadillac CTS was recently named the winner of an Edmunds.com Best Retained Value Award because not all of its gratification has to be instantaneous.
Visit your Southern Nevada Cadillac dealer for this attractive offer.
I'm John Oseguera, and I approve this message.
I see the fear in their eyes. For many victims of rape or abuse, it's a matter of life and death. I know because I was a victim myself. I can't understand why Joe Heck would vote against funding for a rape crisis center, try to restrict rape victims' access to abortion, and oppose funding to help victims of domestic violence. Maybe he's never had to look in their eyes. But if Joe Heck doesn't stand up for them, just who is he standing up for?
Held over! The massive $12 million warehouse inventory sell-off at Ashley Furniture Home Stores Las Vegas is held over. Tons of America's #1 brand of furniture and mattresses is selling at prices too low to mention. Don't miss it at Ashley Furniture Home Stores Las Vegas.
There's a really soft spot in my heart for Nevada, having been born and raised there. When you look at unemployment, it's probably the highest in the country, double digits right now. I voted for Barack Obama. Thought he would be a centrist. I really lost faith in him. I'm supporting Mitt Romney. He's a no-excuse kind of guy. And I think over the last 4 years, we've heard enough excuses. I just don't believe we can afford 4 more years like the last 4 years.
I'm Mitt Romney, and I approve this message. 8 News Now and our community pride partners NV Energy and Finley Automotive Group proudly support Engage.
Engage honors CCSD high school heroes for their community involvement. Students who volunteer gain skills, enhance resumes and college applications, and are more likely to graduate.
Students register and track volunteer hours with United Way. Students with 100 volunteer hours or more by April 1st will be honored in April in conjunction with CCSD's School Community Partnership Program and the fashion show.
This contains the contacts to the biggest names in Las Vegas, a network that comes from 3 decades of reporting. A complicated web of information with one man at its center.
You might say, I know a few people.
The I-Team, always connected.
Welcome back to Politics Now. I'm Steve Sebelius. My guest this week, Dr. Joe Heck. He's running for re-election in the 3rd Congressional District. So you were depicted on video. This was your video moment, the 47% video moment, although at a much less pricey venue, I must say, saying Social Security is, quote-unquote, a pyramid scheme. And I think a couple of times said that. What did you mean by that? And do you stand by that?
Well, look, I think, as I said, I've worked in emergency departments for 20 years, and unfortunately, a big part of the job is delivering bad news. Right? And you got to figure out how to deliver bad news in an emergency department. And sometimes it's like I can tell you the truth, or I can tell you what you want to hear. The fact is, we know by the Social Security trustees that Social Security is not going to be able to pay the benefits by 2037. And so, because we have more people collecting than paying in, or more money going out than coming in, and so we've got to figure out how we're going to protect the program for current retirees and near retirees and preserve it for future generations. And so that's the issue at hand. And unfortunately, there's very little political will to actually address the issue. And so, but we have to, because you can't wait till 2036 and then say, okay, we got to do something before next year. We've got time to figure out how to make sure current and near retirees get the benefits that they've paid into and expect, and figure out what to do with the program for future generations.
Yeah, I think people keyed in on that phrase pyramid scheme because pyramid schemes are frauds. I mean, Bernie Madoff is in jail because he had a pyramid scheme, which, interestingly enough, worked exactly as you just described Social Security. There were more people who were taking out than were paying in, and eventually it collapsed. So you don't think this program is a fraud, do you?
No, it's certainly not a fraud. The issue is, and part of the reason why there are, so fewer people paying in is because of the economy. And we got people out of work. And when you're out of work, Social Security tax isn't being taken out of your paycheck. And so that's one of the things that we need to do to make Social Security solvent, is fix the economy and get more people back to work so more people are paying in. So it's certainly not a fraud. It's a program that's provided retirement security for seniors since 1935. Yeah. The question is, how are we going to make sure it's there in the out years past 2037?
Excellent question. Let's do it. What do you think? How do you think we should make sure it continues? I assume you want it to continue on in perpetuity.
Right. I think you've got to look at what are the possible ways that you can make it more solvent. Certainly, some people have suggested that you should take the cap off Social Security contributions, because right now there's a cap. After a certain amount of income, you don't get taxed on Social Security anymore.
You're taxed about $110,000 roughly.
So some people have said, well, like Medicare, take the cap off and pay Social Security tax on every dollar of income. That's something that can either be applied to the employee, the employer, or both. That's one way.
Do you support that?
Well, I think you've got to, let me run through the list, and then we say, look, you got to then look at actuarially what's going to make the most sense. The other thing that's been talked about is trying to index the retirement age. And one of the things that was mentioned previously is that if you increase the retirement age 1 month for each year moving forward, then you can make the program solvent out to almost 2070 by just increasing it 1 month each year. So that's something else that we can look at.
To a certain cap?
To a certain cap. Because remember, when Social Security was started in 1935, the average lifespan for a male was 61 years of age, but the age to collect was 65. So they were actually realizing that more people probably would never be collecting. Now we've increased the average lifespan.
To me, I guarantee it.
Now the average lifespan is 78. So we've increased the lifespan significantly, but we've only increased the retirement age by 67. Yeah. Now nobody wants to say a laborer should be working until they're 72 years of age, but we need to look at the combination of structural changes. Again, making sure that nothing is done for those that are currently on Social Security or close to being on Social Security, but for the 21-year-old who's just starting out, they need to know in advance what they can expect at the age of 65, 67, or whatever it may be, so they can better prepare for their retirement.
Yeah. So let's say you're reelected, H.R. 1, this is going to be the Social Security Reform Act that you're going to introduce. What would be in there? What would be the things that you personally could support on this program?
Well, I think I can certainly support an indexing of the retirement age.
Okay.
And I think you can also support, to a certain degree, removing the cap on the total amount of income that is contributed to Social Security. But you also have to keep in mind that the amount of benefit you receive is somewhat related to how much you've paid in. And so if you have people paying in more, past that 110, then rightfully so, they're going to expect a little more. So you may not get as much bang for the buck by increasing the cap.
Yeah.
But I think, again, you've got to have...
You're talking about raising taxes. That would essentially be a tax increase, wouldn't it?
Well, I think when you look at trying to preserve the program for future generations, you've got to look at what the most actuarially sound way is going to be to make sure that the program is there for those that are currently entering the workforce at the time they hit whatever the full retirement age may be. And you know, I can't say what I would exactly vote for at this point in time, but I think you've got to consider every possible option and see what the bill brings together and what the actuaries say is the most common sense way to take care of the issue.
Yeah. Some people say a means test is another way to go. For example, if I went down and, God willing, knock on whatever this is, and hit the megabucks today, I wouldn't need Social Security when I retire, presuming I invested and spent that money wisely. Should I get it if I'm wealthy and I don't need it, or shouldn't that go to somebody who really does need it?
But you paid into it. You paid into it for your retirement security. And so I think you're entitled to get your retirement security for what you paid into. You know, there's already been means testing in Medicare, and that started years ago. You know, more well-off seniors pay a little bit higher premium for their Medicare Part B. Right. But I don't think that when you're paying in to your retirement security program that you should, at whatever age, because you may have been successful, think that, okay, I shouldn't get what I paid in. Now, if you want to voluntarily say, I don't need it, leave it into the trust, and have it go to somebody else, I'm all for that.
Okay.
But I think you paid into it, you should get it.
All right, sounds good. Coming up, should the Las Vegas monorail get federal funds to run to the airport? What about the Express West train to Victorville? We'll ask Joe Heck those questions. Politics Now continues. Stay with us.
You made on your investments personally about $20 million last year, and you paid 14% in federal taxes. That's the capital gains rate. Is that fair to the guy who makes $50,000 and paid a higher rate than you did? So you think it is fair?
Yeah, I think it's the right way to encourage economic growth.
Lower tax rates for him than us. Is that the way to grow America?
I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
Your home, whether you own or rent, it's not just the place you live. It's where you keep the things you value the most. Things that could disappear in a wildfire. And while you can't predict when or how a fire might affect your home, you can be prepared in case it does with a home inventory. It's easy with free helpful tools from the Nevada Division of Insurance. Make a home inventory, review your policy, and contact the Nevada Division of Insurance if you have insurance questions. You can make a difference.
Heat, cold, noise, and security. It's all compromised by your windows. Rolladen rolling shutters are the only window coverings that offer privacy, protection, and insulation that will save you money. Wouldn't you like to see a 25 to 60% savings on your power bill? And nothing protects your family and your home from theft like Rolladen rolling shutters. A sturdy aluminum design protects your home whether you're home or away. Don't spend thousands on window coverings that won't last or protect your home.
Holiday special, $50 off each shutter purchase.
Banking is one thing I don't have time to worry about.
Which is why I made the switch to One Nevada.
Open a checking account today and enjoy free mobile check deposits with your smartphone.
I don't miss anything about my old bank. One Nevada gives me everything I need.
If you've been injured on the job and you're not getting the money you deserve, call someone you trust. Enough said. Call Ed.
A work injury affects more than just you. It affects your family, too. If you're worried, call me.
With Romney and Bain Capital, the objective was to make money. Whether the companies they came in and worked with made money or not was irrelevant. Bain Capital always made money. If we lost, they made money. If we survived, they made money. It's as simple as that. He promised us the same things he's promised in the United States. He'll give you the same thing he gave us. Nothing. He'll take it all.
Priorities USA Action is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Welcome back to Politics Now. I'm Steve Sebelius. My guest this week is Dr. Joe Heck. He's running for re-election in the 3rd Congressional District. So the Las Vegas monorail has said that it wants to expand to the airport. but that it needs federal grants to do it. They've given up on trying to raise private money. I don't know why. It may have something to do with the fact that they turned $757 million in investment into just 13 through the bankruptcy proceeding. The federal government's the only one left who may give them money. If that proposal came before you, would you support that?
You know, I'd have to see what the proposal showed. I mean, I think everybody in hindsight said, you know, that monorail should have started at the airport from its inception, and if it did, it probably wouldn't find itself in the dire situation that it's in. You know, you got to look at the analysis. Is bringing it to the airport really going to be the savior of the monorail? And looking at the studies, and certainly if the money is there and it's in the federal funds, and we've got an opportunity to bring those federal funds back to Nevada to support the monorail, and the project pencils out, and they can demonstrate a ridership, then certainly it's something I would consider.
Yeah, so you're not taking it off the table at all?
No, certainly not. I think anything that we can do to try to increase utilization of the monorail, make it a better experience for the tourists that are coming here after I pass my bill, and we got more foreign travelers coming. We want to get them from the airport down to the Strip as quickly as possible.
We will have all those people from India and China and Brazil here. What about the Express West train? This train is now being looked at by the Federal Railroad Administration for potentially a federal loan. Right. This probably won't come to Congress. This will probably be a administrative decision that's made. Should a project like that get federal funds? Well, that's what that project is there for. I mean, that's why the FRA is there, is to be able to fund rail projects. And don't forget, there's also significant private investment being put into this. And I really think, you know, this train is been somewhat mischaracterized. I mean, everybody called it was a train nowhere. Who's going to take a train from Las Vegas to Victorville? Well, that's not really the demographic that the train is going for. It's going to bring people from California to Las Vegas. And it's not the folks that are in the L.A. basin who it's easier to drive to LAX. It's the folks that live within a 30 to 45-minute radius of Victorville. Those are the folks that will drive there and get on a train and begin their Las Vegas experience as soon as they get on a train. Ride the party train to Las Vegas. Your baggage will be taken from the train right to your hotel. Start your Las Vegas experience right away. And there's also a phase 2 of a link from Victorville to Palmdale, which would then go into the rest of the California rail system. So I think that there's potential there when you look at the amount of private investment that's been put into place and the Federal Railway Administration fund. We haven't built many railways. There's a lot of money sitting in that account. And if we can use it to bring more travel and tourism dollars to Southern Nevada, then I think it's something we need to consider. You've got a future in the LVCVA if this Congress thing doesn't work out. What about the Interstate 10? I read an article that said Interstate 11. Interstate 11 between here and Phoenix should be done about 20 years. Is there no way we could get that done in less than 20 years?
Probably not, just because of the environmental issues that have to be addressed. Look, this was an issue. We were very fortunate to get the designation for I-11 corridor in the transportation bill this year. I ran point on that issue in the House along with Paul Gosar from Arizona. Making sure that because it started in the Senate bill, and when it came to conference, we wanted to make sure that the I-11 corridor didn't get stripped out. So Paul and I worked very hard to make sure that it stayed in. But when you look at all the environmental impact surveys, the NEPA studies that have to be done, that is really what extends the amount of time it takes to build a highway of this magnitude. So certainly if we want to find a way to get through the EIS and the NEPA studies much more quickly, then we can have this highway much more quickly. And again, it's more travel and tourism to us as well as interstate commerce.
Sounds good. Okay, well, Dr. Joe Heck, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. That's all the time we have here on this week's Politics Now. Please join us next week for another episode. We'll see you then.
Give us your poor parallel park jobs and bruised sedans, and we'll give your vehicle's bumper the paint and shine it's yearning for. Bring your vehicle into Maaco now for our $99 bumper special. Maaco, America's #1 paint and body shop.
We know that Rebath can replace our old bathtub fast.
But we're looking for something more. Call your local Rebath today and let a Rebath expert show you all the possibilities of a full Rebath remodel. Complete with a new bathtub or shower, wall surround, cabinets, even sinks and toilets. All this plus quick, efficient installation. A totally new bathroom?
It's that easy?
It's that easy.
Fast, affordable, and guaranteed. Call Rebath of Las Vegas today at 702-740-BATH for your free in-home estimate.
As a small businessman, Danny Tarkanian knows how to create jobs for working people who need work, not empty promises, and for parents who want to provide for their children. Danny Tarkanian will fight to keep taxes low, end the red tape and reckless spending that's crushing our economy. Danny Tarkanian knows what we need: jobs. He'll fight every day to make it happen.
I'm Danny Tarkanian, and I approve this message.
Sergeant Bedwell, too many pedestrians are getting killed or injured while trying to cross the street.
That's right. Pedestrians have to watch for cars, and drivers have to watch for pedestrians.
Beat the Traffic is